Wow. That's how that's done, ladies and gentlemen. Tony Trischka, Gentle on My Mind, featuring Billy Strings and a whole bunch of other great musicians. Gentle on My Mind, of course, originally recorded by John Hartford and then Glenn Campbell. You might have heard of it. What an amazing track. And honored to have today's guest on the line with me. Tony, are you there?
I am here.
Oh, did you enjoy hearing that as much as we did?
Yeah, I don't really tire of it. Thank you, especially that ending. What was that all about? What happened there?
Yeah. And that's just beautiful when it all comes together like that. If I may, sir, I'd like to do a brief introduction and start out by saying banjo virtuoso Tony Trischka is known as the father of modern bluegrass. Grammy nominee, songwriter, and educator, Tony was named Banjo Player of the Year by the International Bluegrass Music Awards. He was also named a United States Artists Friends Fellow. Considered amongst the most innovative of banjo players, Tony is also one of its most respected and sought-after instructors. He launched the groundbreaking Tony Trischka School of Banjo, which is an advanced interactive online instructional site. Tony's release to his album Earl Jam 2, which followed the Grammy-nominated album Earl Jam, and he'll be starting tour beginning next month. And with that, just a warm welcome back to LocalMotion, Tony Trischka.
Thank you, Rita. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. So the last time I saw you, I don't know, I'm really bad with time after it's happened, a month or two ago, you guys killed it at Bearsville Theater. All three of you sitting on stage was like a dream come true for so many of us. You, Bill Frisell, and Larry Campbell.
That was quite an experience. Larry just had this idea to put us together, and it was fantastic. Yeah, we rehearsed out at Bill's house out in Brooklyn, and I lived in Brooklyn for a while, but houses in Brooklyn, I didn't know there was such a thing. But yes, indeed, and it's not a brownstone; it's a house. But anyway,
Wow.
I had not even I'd met Bill in passing before, but he's a very sweet man. And obviously an incredible guitar player. And Larry I've known for years. When I was living in New York, that's when I first got to know him. And, of course, all those years with Bob Dylan. And he plays all the instruments. And he's just another really sweet guy. So it was really a fun time just trying to put these disparate elements together in one package. And
it was a treat. I mean, just to see any one of you alone on stage or with a band or whatever is just amazing. But to have the three of you so diverse together is absolutely wonderful. So Larry was my first ever guest on this show 11 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know. That was a real special night, that treat. And then prior to that, I remember seeing you for a Happy Traum tribute that you were part of at Maverick Concerts in Woodstock.
Right. Yeah. That was a wonderful evening.
Yeah.
And, I felt close to Happy because I first got to know him doing homespun tapes, instructional tapes.
Sure.
But we got together socially from time to time when I'd be up in Woodstock or if we were in the same place at the same time. And his wife Jane, of course, is absolutely wonderful also. So it was really sad losing Happy.
Yeah.
Because he contributed so much instructionally and musically on all levels.
Every time I talked to him here on the show, I felt, and we were, getting a history in folk music. And
he was there for so much of it.
Yeah. The first time Dylan recorded Blowing in the Wind, Happy was there. I didn't even know that. He was talking on my show years ago, and he said that. I had no clue. It was amazing. So
I didn't know that either. He did tell me that he and Jane were living in the Village, and Bob Dylan came over when, this was like 1962 or something. Hey, Happy, I just wrote this new song. It's called Hard Rain's Gonna Fall. You want to hear it?
Jeez.
I mean, he was there for all this stuff.
Yeah, he was. Now, you have a little Dylan story too, Tony Trischka. You met him in Syracuse, didn't you, when you were just starting out?
Yeah, I don't even know if I had started out yet, but I was 14 years old, and it was my very first banjo teacher who, my parents had to get me a banjo teacher because I was so desperate to play the banjo, but he was more of a clawhammer player, more of the old-time style. And he was actually more of a folk singer than anything else, not even that much of a banjo player. But and I wanted the picking style. But anyway, the first lesson I took with him, I went to his apartment, and there was a record leaning up against the wall by a guy named Bob Dylan. At least that's how I thought it was pronounced. And it was Dylan's first album. And on the back it said, and my teacher was John Gaines was his name, and it said, to John from Bob. So my teacher knew him in the village. So Dylan came to Syracuse, New York, to a theater in Syracuse in October of 1963, doing a benefit for an organization called CORE, Congress on Racial Equality. And he was doing Times Air Change and Blowing in the Wind, and just all the protest songs. And it was an amazing concert. And afterwards, I went back, and I went with my teacher of all things, with John Gaines, and we went backstage afterwards and got to meet Bob and shook hands with him. And then we were invited to go over to his hotel room across the street after the show. So we went over there, and there's Bob, and sort of a heavy-set guy, probably Bob's manager, Albert Grossman.
Oh, yeah, we know him. Woodstock area, sure.
Woodstock,
yep.
Marysville, sure.
Yeah.
And Bob said, would you like something to drink? And I said, well, I'll have a Coca-Cola.
Yeah, because you were 14, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I was 14, and he went down the hall and bought me a Coke. So my life has all been downhill since then.
Yeah,
plummeting, desperate. Oh, sorry.
I don't think so. I don't think so, Tony. Have you ever met him since you've been a professional musician?
No, I haven't. I haven't.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah.
I've gone backstage when Larry was playing him a couple of times, but Bob is usually pretty scarce. So.
Yeah, he does his own thing. So you are a New Yorker. You're born in Syracuse, and your parents apparently were a huge musical influence on you. And your mom went to school with Toshi Seeger. How cool is that? Where was that school?
It was a little red schoolhouse in the village. In the 40s, she was going to school with Toshi Seeger, and talking to Toshi years later. Toshi knew a couple of my aunts. There was sort of this family connection. So I was friendly with Toshi and Pete Seeger, of course, in his later years. And getting to know Pete was quite an experience, to say the least. Boy, could we use him today.
I was just going to say, what would Pete say today?
I know. Yeah. In fact, my son made up a T-shirt which said, "What would Pete do?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I had an experience. I put out an album called Territory, and I recorded with him and Bruce Malsky.
Oh, yeah.
Who lives in Beacon.
Yep.
Wonderful old-time fiddler and banjo player and singer, et cetera, et cetera. And we recorded a tune with Pete for the album. And afterwards, and we were in Garrison, New York, where my great uncle lived for a while. But anyway, that's another story. Anyway, at the end of the session, Bruce, who lived in Beacon, was going to take Pete back to his place. And, Bruce is in the driver's seat and Pete's sitting in the passenger seat. And he looks out as I'm going to say goodbye and sees something shiny. And he gets out of the vehicle and maybe 30 or 40 feet away, there was this old broken headlight for a car. And he went and picked it up and got back in his seat and had it sitting in his lap. And I said, "Pete, do you want me to take that for you?" It was just junk basically, but he didn't want it to be just sitting littering. So he said, "Yeah, as long as you dispose of it properly." So, talk about walking, walk and walk, talking the talk, and he did it,
Man, he sure did. He sure did. People like walking around Beacon, because we're right now, I'm in Poughkeepsie. Okay. So this is home. Beacon is like right next to us. And people, when Pete was alive, you just see him going into the mail, but the post office, getting his mail and just walking around and, picking up stuff. He was a frequent guest at the Town Crier, which of course you played at with Phil Segoner. And just such a warm human being, and I really do wonder what Pete would say today.
Can't even imagine, because he would stand out on the street corner in Beacon on Saturday mornings with a sign that said "Peace," just standing there with a sign called "Peace." I never had the opportunity to join him. I wish I had.
Right? Yeah. No, absolutely. So you, Tony Trischka, your first instrument was flute?
I started with flute. I wish I'd stayed with it because it's much lighter than the banjo. But that's another story. But yeah, flute, and then classical lessons when I was like in third grade or something, and then piano lessons. And then I kind of got turned onto the guitar by the Kingston Trio. This would have been in 1961 or something like that. The whole folk boom, or the second half of the folk boom, I guess you could say. And then I heard the Kingston Trio do a song called MTA on the Kingston Trio at Large album, and their banjo player Dave Guard took this banjo break that was kind of a bluegrassy, kind of a Scruggsy kind of a solo, not exactly, but kind of. And there were 16 notes in that solo that I went, oh my gosh, I've got to play the banjo. This is it for me. And
wait a minute,
begged my parents till they got me one.
And you played Beethoven Ninth? That's what you first learned to play?
You've done your research.
Yes, yes, Mr. Tony Trischka. Of course I have. But that's really the first thing you wanted to play on banjo?
Yeah, because I love the piece, and who doesn't? And I just by ear found the notes on the banjo, and when I got my first, it was a long neck Christie banjo, because it was, I have to get what the Kingston Trio has and what Pete Seeger has, and I didn't realize that I needed a resonated bluegrass banjo. But anyway, I figured out the melody to the famous Ode to Joy in Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, and that's what I played.
Lovely. Wow. Wow. And you, of course, had lessons, like you said, because your teacher took you to Bob Dylan's show. And then what did you do? Move to the city, or did you go to college and then the city? I know you ended up in the city there.
I did end up in the city, but after that first banjo teacher, I found another. I went to a hootenanny, folk gathering at Syracuse University, where my dad taught. At this point, I may be 14 years old still. And there was a guy playing bluegrass banjo named Hal Glatzer, and I, shyly went up to him because he was a college guy, although it turns out he was only 17.
Wow.
But anyway, and said, "Can you teach me?" And he did. And I would go to his dorm, and he would teach me bluegrass and Scruggs style and other related styles. And we're still friends. He lives in the city to this day. So,
nice. Wow.
And I played in various groups in Syracuse. A group called the Down City Ramblers, which was the first group I was playing at, and we played at Captain Mac's Clam Shack in Syracuse. And then I started playing with a group called Country Cooking with Pete Warnick, who started Hot Rise. And there were other like-minded folks like me, kind of trying to stretch the boundaries of bluegrass a little bit. And I was also in a sports rock group called Country Granola in Syracuse.
I love all the food names.
I know. I was in food bands, and then speaking of which, in around 1973, 72, 73, we did a second country cooking album, and invited a guy named Andy Statman and another guy named Kenny Kosek to come up from New York City. And on their bus ride back down from recording the second country cooking record called Barrel of Fun, they decided they wanted to start a band with me. And they called me and said, "Hey, come to New York City." So I moved to the Bronx from Syracuse, which is a big culture shock,
yeah, it
to
is.
say the least.
Yeah.
But it got me out of Syracuse, and I started playing with people who thought the same way I did about music, and we were together for about 3 years.
Wow. Is that Breakfast Special?
Yeah, that was Breakfast Special, the other food band.
Yeah. So funny. I love how that worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, you started releasing all kinds of music. And you've. When did teaching, when you said, okay, I'd like to teach, because, of course, you're the mentor of Bela Fleck. And he apparently called you to start lessons when he was, 15, 16?
Yeah, I think he was 16 at the time. I started teaching when I was still living in Syracuse. This would have been 1970, 71, 72, somewhere in there. And there was a woman who played in an all-female bluegrass band. It was called the Buffalo Gals. And her name was Susie Monick, and she was the banjo player. And she said, "Can you give me some banjo lessons?" And I said, "Well, I don't teach." And she said, "Well, I won't pay you." So, okay, perfect. and that's how I got started.
Wow.
And then, teaching up in Syracuse some, and moved to New York and continued teaching. And the 16-year-old kid called up for lessons, and it was Bela. And that's how I got to know him. And my first record had come out, and he wanted to learn some of that stuff on there, and had taken some banjo lessons. He actually started with a guy named Eric Darling, who was the banjo player with the Weavers after Pete Seeger left.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
They learned some things from him, and then went with a guy named Mark Horowitz, a wonderful banjo player, who's in Staten Island these days. And he was, and Mark's a really good bluegrass banjo player, and was showing Bela some Earl Scruggs things and fiddle tunes and things like that. But Bela wanted to learn some tunes from my first record, and the stuff was really weird. I don't know what that was all about, but I was writing these weird banjo tunes, and so Mark had to learn these to teach Bela, and then he finally said, just take
Call
lessons
him.
sometime.
Yeah.
He lives in New York, so
Yeah.
he would schlep up to the Bronx, and we did lessons for, I don't know, neither of us remembers exactly, a couple of months or something like that, and it was obvious that he had the goods big time, even at the age of 16. So we would just, after that, rather than teaching him, we just kind of picked and worked on
Amazing.
writing like
Amazing. He's
that.
like a virtuoso already at that young, but sounds like you were also. So, yeah. Now, when we say Earl Jam, you've come out with these amazing albums. Talk about Earl Scruggs.
Well, I sometimes say I wouldn't exist without Earl Scruggs. I mean, here's this, kind of shyish uh, guy living in South Central North Carolina, whose father died when he was 4 years old and was raised by his mom, and turned out to be a genius. He just had this thing that, who knows how and why, but and just playing music because he loved the banjo, and somehow by just being out there with Lester Flatt and, well, first with Bill Monroe, then Lester Flatt, and then with his sons and the Earl Scruggs Review, and then with his own career, inspired probably millions of musicians, but certainly hundreds of thousands, literally hundreds of thousands of banjo players, either to just enjoy playing some of his tunes, or in the case of my own life, created a life for myself, a pathway, which became the banjo, and I'm still on that path.
Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these albums that you did, they came to you like during COVID. And talk about this, that you got this thumb drive that just so fascinating to me.
Yeah, there were two Earl Scruggs books out there. One came out in 1968, and then they put out a second one, I don't remember now, 8 or 9 years ago, 10 years ago, something like that, called the Earl Scruggs Songbook, which said highly accurate transcriptions, but in fact, the original edition, they had guitar players transcribe it who knew nothing of the style. So some of the notes were correct, but they were in the wrong places on the fingerboard. And so a guy named Bob Pekel was asked to correct it, but he only had a weekend to do it.
Mm.
And so the second edition came out with still a bunch of corrections needed. And for the third edition, he got in touch with me and another banjo player named Tom Adams and said, how about the three of us divide up this book in three parts, and we'll each work on those tunes and make them correct. And we did. But in the midst of working with Bob, who's also from Syracuse, he would send me a tune or two of Earl jamming with John Hartford.
Wow.
And what's this stuff? This, like, tunes that we've never heard before. And then one day a thumb drive appeared in my mailbox, and it was over 200 tunes from these jams that Bob sent me.
Mm.
He sent me the whole batch that he had, these jams that took place somewhere kind of between 1986 and 1997, because Earl Scruggs was kind of thinking of getting out of the business. He'd been touring for all these years, and he had had a family tragedy, and he'd been talking to John about this, and John Hartford was not going to let Earl Scruggs stop playing. So he said, hey, let's have some jam sessions.
Mm.
And they did. It would be, many of them at Earl's house and some at John's house. And John would record all of them on a cheap cassette machine.
Wow.
And sometimes it's just two of them, and sometimes it's with a bass player. Sometimes you can hear Tony Rice in there, or Del McCurry, or Mac Wiseman, Sam Bush, various folks. But a lot of times it's just the two of them. And anyway, so it was just a revelation to hear them do these tunes we'd never heard them play before, such as Chinese Breakdown. Like, what's Earl Scruggs playing this tune? And he did an incredibly cool break on that. And then they also did Here Comes the Bride.
Wow.
What? There's
What?
this alphabetical listing, and I'm going down. It's Here Comes the Bride, and it's him and John, but John is doing his dance, as he would do on a plywood board, Buck and Wing, or I'm not sure, some sort of clogging thing. And there's no audience. He just felt like dancing. So I recreated it on Earl Jam 2
Wow.
with Michael Cleveland playing fiddle, and Mark Satz was on a previous session with me on that day. So, and Mark is a great dancer, so we had him do a little bit of a clog and recorded his feet and tried to recreate the way they did it in the original jam.
What an album! What an album! Earl Jam 2. Congratulations! And
Thank you.
it really just we just heard, like I said before we started, we heard the track "Gentle on My Mind" with Billy Strings. You've got such great collaborators that you're working with on this album, and also Earl Jam is one as well. So just really impressive. I don't know. I love your playing, obviously. So
Thank you so much.
yeah, no, absolutely. You are an amazing also instructor. So Artist Works contacted you and talk about what you do with them.
Okay, I think you might have mentioned it's advanced. It's maybe the technology is advanced, but it's absolute. If you've just picked up the banjo for the first time, you learn how to hold the banjo. It's absolute, very basic beginning, and it goes all the way through intermediate into advanced with band-fleck things, and it's everything in between. But yeah, they contacted me, and I think I was the fourth person to sign up with them. This would have been about 17 years ago. And it's an online banjo school, and the technology is such that people can send in videos, and I respond to them. It goes into a queue. When I'm not on the road, I respond to them. And, it's a really great way to interact with people. And I've had people from Moscow, South Africa, all over Europe, Japan, of course, probably
Right.
every state in the union at this point. So it's a wonderful technology, and it's ongoing. And I can keep adding new lessons. In fact, I'm going to go to Florida, where they're based, and do another batch of lessons. And so it just keeps expanding all the time. I probably have like 400 lessons plus
Wow. Wow.
interviews with over 50 people, including Steve Martin and Bela and Earl Scruggs and Alison Brown, and on and on and on.
Wow. Wow. And
And Molly
people
Tuttle, who
people
actually plays banjo too.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I've heard a few collaborations with her as well.
Yeah.
TonyTrischka.com. By the way, if folks are listening, you can see all this info about the School of Banjo on Tony's website. Tony, you're hitting the road. You're going out west next month.
That's right. Yeah, I in fact, just got back from a tour a couple of days ago out west in Ohio.
Uh huh.
That's west of here, anyway.
Yeah.
A couple of dates in Pennsylvania, a couple in Ohio, and then heading out to near just north of San Diego, at the Grammy Museum. I'm doing a solo show there, and then McCabe's in L.A. Solo show there, and then I meet up with the rest of my band, with Michael Daves and Casey Dreesen and Jared Engel in Berkeley, the Freight and Salvage there, and then a gig in Dry Town, California, about 2 hours away, and it's a city. It's at a winery
Oh, in Dry
in,
Town.
in Dry Town. There seems like there's some sort of disconnect there, but yeah,
Yeah, and then it works. And then you're going to be. I used to live there at West Long Branch. You're going to be at the Ocean First Bank Center with Bruce Springsteen,
yeah, and a bunch of other folks.
Roseanne Cash. Yeah.
Yeah. I was contacted, I don't know, a couple of months ago by a guy named Bob Santelli, who was the first executive director of the Grammy Museum in
Hmm.
San Diego, and I had done a few things with him before, and he said, we're doing this thing on kind of the history of American music, 250
Oh.
years, to commemorate 1776. But,
Hmm.
a lot of music that's taken place in chronological order. And originally it was just going to be on June 5th with, with Bruce and Keb Mo and, as you say, Roseanne Cash. And then he just kept inviting people, and it expanded into a two-day thing, and so I'm representing bluegrass, and I'm using a group that's on the album on Earl Jam 2 named Sister Sadie. These wonderful women who are great singers, great pickers, and they're going to be my backup band.
Oh, that's so fun. That's so fun. June 4th. So, people, if you're listening on the East Coast, you can go check that out. And that's just down on the ocean there, West Long Branch, New Jersey. And then it looks like you're also doing a bluegrass festival up in Vermont at the end of June.
Hmm.
Yeah, so lots of great shows coming up, and then you're back out west. You don't sit still for too long, Tony.
No, I get restless. I like to. I mean, I love being home, but I also love being out on the road,
Yeah, yeah,
playing Earl Scruggs music and some
yeah,
of my own too. I have some of my own tunes
yeah,
that
absolutely.
get in there.
You're doing a Green Mountain Bluegrass and Roots Festival August 16th in beautiful Manchester, Vermont.
Yep,
Um,
yep.
yeah, yeah, super fun, and yeah, you're just always all over the place. It's just wonderful. It's wonderful. Your music is. We're so lucky to have you playing this music and just sharing it with us all. You've just made such an impact on so many lives through music, and it's just extraordinary. And I love your passion for it. Like when you're on stage and your face, you can just see like you really love what you're doing, and it just comes out in such a beautiful way. So thank you, Tony
Thank you so much.
Trischka.
I really appreciate that. Yeah, I still, in all these years, I've been playing since 1963, and I still feel really passionate about music in general. But the banjo, of course, it's still such a companion and inspiration to myself. Uh, and I first started getting into the Scruggs style thing, and then I started learning some old time fiddle tunes. That was another direction. And then in 1990, I went to the Tennessee Banjo Institute. They had three of those in 88, 90, and 92, and that was in Lebanon, Tennessee. And they had these people playing music from like the mid 1800s out of banjo instruction books. And it was music that was, used in the minstrel shows and taken from enslaved Africans, this sort of thing.
Yeah.
But the music has African roots, and it was just had profound impact on me because I knew what was going on at the turn of the century, this sort of classic style parlor banjo music. But this was a whole other thing,
Wow.
kind of downstroke style that you would today call clawhammer.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just always some new venue, some new avenue to follow.
Right. Right.
It's a never-ending search. And then having all these recordings of Earl and John fall into my lap, it's like, okay, this is
You could make like 10 more albums, I'm guessing.
absolutely, yeah. And I just still love all the old music. I recorded, what's it called? Columbus Stockade Blues
Mm-hmm.
on Earl Jam 2 with Del McCurry. And then maybe 3 weeks ago, I just going down the YouTube rabbit hole, I found a version of Bill Monroe doing it in 1942, yodeling it.
Wow.
And this tour of out in Ohio, I just had our singers sing it yodel the way it was. I wish I could re-record it with Del and have him yodel it the way it was that Bill Monroe did it back then. So anyway, it's just there's always some new rock to lift up and find amazing things underneath it.
Yeah, it's great when people recorded things, and even way back then too, just to like have the knowledge to just say, yeah, let's just hit the record button and see what happens. And then you find it decades later. It's got to be so
Right.
cool. Can one ask how many banjos you own?
It's kind of a personal question, but I'll answer it. I think I've got about 18,
Okay. Okay.
but
It
most
could
of
be a
them
lot worse.
I'm staring at the cases as we speak. But I have an electric banjo. I've got a replica of a mid 1800s banjo that's low tuned with a skinhead, and an 1888 banjo that somebody gave to me, and a low tuned banjo that Bela developed called the Missing Link, and just they all do different things. So
Hence, you have 18 banjos. Now,
exactly,
when you hit the
exactly.
road, you obviously don't take 18 banjos with you. So you take how many? Two, three, four?
No, I take one when I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing the Earl Jam thing, but
Mm-hmm.
when I do solo shows, when I'm driving, I'll usually have 4 or 5 banjos with me just to keep it interesting, have different tonalities for
Right.
people to listen to, so it's not just the same bluegrass banjo
Right.
sound. I mean,
Right.
I can do that too, and when I go to California, I will be using just one banjo
Right. Right.
because it's too hard to travel with these things, with multiple banjos. But anyway, yeah,
Yeah, no, and it is. It is. You hear musicians' nightmare stories all the time, with checked instruments and all of that. So yeah, no, I don't blame you.
yeah.
Just to finish up, also, you're friends with Steve Martin, and who's
Mhm.
also an incredible banjo player.
He's wonderful. He's wonderful. Yeah. I mean, he can play some bluegrass things. He can play Foggy Mountain Breakdown or Shuckin' the Corn, another Earl Scruggs tune. But he sort of feels like, well, other people are already doing that. What else can I do? And he writes a lot of his own tunes, and I think he leans a little more towards clawhammer these days. He's always done that, but he started playing the banjo when he was in high school, and he took lessons from John McEwen from the Nitty Gritty Dirt
Oh
Band.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, but banjo's always been there. And in 1974, I was in this band that I mentioned before called Breakfast Special, and we played this club in the village. And we were there for 4 nights, and the first 2 nights we shared the bill with Steve, with balloon animals and the arrow through the head and playing the banjo. So I remember talking to him, and we, shared our love for the banjo a little bit. And then the second 2 nights, we had a group called the Buckingham Nicks opening up for us, doing a sort of a showcase for a record company. And that's Lindsey Buckingham and Stevie Nicks.
Oh wow, nice.
And so I always compare our career trajectories. Steve Martin kind of rose to the top, as did the Buckingham Nicks. Not that I'm complaining. I've had a wonderful career.
Yeah,
But,
absolutely.
yeah.
But so have you, Tony, and you continue to do so. So, yeah, I wouldn't say any different than that. That's for sure. And you produced Steve Martin's album also, right? It was Grammy nominated?
Yeah, it was called Rare Bird Alert.
Mm-hmm.
I asked him to, I did this double banjo album for Rounder Records, and I asked him if he'd be, this was many years later, this was 15, 17 years ago, whatever, if he'd be interested in playing on it. And he said yes. So I went to his apartment, having not seen him since 1974. And we just ran down a couple of tunes, one of which was called The Crow. And I've just had some amazing experiences through Steve, because that was the first time I'd really hung out with him since 1974. And it was like 10 in the morning, and he said he had a photo shoot with Life magazine happening around noon. So, I'd have to leave before then. And he said, well, Paul Simon's coming over at noon if you want to stay around and have lunch. I went,
Oh, man.
okay, that'd be all right.
Yeah, sure. I can do that. I've got nothing
I
else
can do
going
that.
on. Yeah, I can do that for a few hours. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And so at noon, Paul Simon comes in. And at that moment, I'm introduced to him, and at that moment, Steve has a phone call, so he has to go. And Steve has this great art collection. And so Paul's just walking around the room looking at the various pieces of art, and then he goes over and picks up Steve's banjo and strums a little bit on it. And I said, you sound good with the banjo, just to make some conversation. And he said, I could never figure out this thing. So I said, well, play a D7th like you would on the guitar, and I'll lift off your ring finger. And that's a D7th on the banjo. So I gave him sort of a 45-second banjo lesson, and then Steve came back in. And I could go in with the story. It was just an amazing experience.
Wow. How much fun was that? Wow, what a
nice... It was pretty fun, to say the least.
Yeah, wow.
But anyway, so Steve was getting back in the banjo, and I helped to do some pre-production work for his first album of the new era, which is all banjo, called The Crow. I found the studio and put the band together and whatnot, but John McEwen produced it. But Steve asked me to produce the second album, Rare Bird Alert, which was obviously a real treat. And had the Steve Canyon Rangers on it, and the Chicks, and Paul McCartney was on there, and it was quite an experience, to say the least.
Wow.
Being that.
Talk about versatile performers, all of them. So, yeah, some really amazing stuff. That's great. Wow, Steve Martin.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, my brain just flew. So Earl Jam 2, this is your latest record. I mean, the people you've got on here, Bruce Molsky, which, by the way, my daughter's a violinist, and she's going to his camp. He's doing a camp with Daryl up in the Berkshires or something, and Bruce has been on here many times. He's just an extraordinary fiddler.
No, he's incredible, yeah.
Yeah. You've got Del McCrory on this record. You've got the Gibson brothers, Molly Tuttle, Sam Bush. Whoa, Sister Sadie, the Steel Drivers. I mean, Earl, is there going to be an Earl Jam 3?
I'm not sure. We'll see how this does, and I'm not sure if Down the Road Records, who put it out, who are actually comprised of the original 3 people that started Rounder Records. They were out of the business, sold the business, and now they've come back with Down the Road Records with some of the same people that were on Rounder, including Alison Krauss. But there's certainly enough material. I could do a third one, but maybe give it a break. But we'll see.
Yeah, time will tell. Ever think about writing an autobiography?
People mention that, but I never really find the time to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've had some amazing experiences, to say the least. So maybe somewhere down the line.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you journal like when you're on the road? Like have like here today, there tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm not disciplined enough in
Yeah.
that sense to do
Mm-hmm.
that. So it
Yeah.
would be good
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do something like that. Yeah, but I still remember a bunch of things, and at some point maybe I will
Yeah. Yeah.
write it all down there and see if someone wants to put it out.
Yeah, I think it'd be pretty interesting. I'm sure you have a boatload of great stories to share over this amazing career that you're having, and yeah, and I want to play some of your music. Any particular tracks you'd like me to play from Earl Jam 2? I right now have Columbus Stockade Blues up, but if there's something else you'd like me to spin here, I will happily do so. You can play DJ.
Sure, no, that would be great. Maple on the Hill, the Sister Sadie, it would be great to hear that also.
Okay, I will do that as well. Yeah. Yeah, Tony, it's been an honor to host you. It's been a delight. You are a master of your craft. We all know that. We're just so thankful for you and doing all this music and all these years and all this just I don't know these wonderful collaborations, and we're just so lucky to have you around, and thank you, and for your time here, because it's the greatest gift one can give each other. So I really do thank you for your time here today, and I do hope to see you again in person, and I wish you safe travels, fun travels, and all the best. Oops, are you there? Oh no. Oh, I just lost Tony Trischka. Oh, all right. Well, that was Tony Trischka. And yeah, we were just saying goodbye, but that was a wonderful conversation. Let's play some music right now and thank Tony for his time. This one is off his latest album called Columbus Stockade Blues. Earl Jam 2 is the album. Let's take a listen to the track right here, right now on 91.3.
Way down in Columbus, Georgia, wanna be back in Tennessee. Way down in Columbus, Stockade, friends have turned their back on me. Go and leave me if you wish to. Never let me cross your mind. In your heart, you love another. Leave me, darling, I don't mind.
91.3 Columbus Stockade Blues. Guess who's back on the line? Hello, Tony. You're back.
I'm back.
Yes.
Back.
Yes.
We just got disconnected there for a
We
minute.
did. Technology does these things every once in a while, but yeah, that was fun. We just heard what was it? Columbus Street.
Columbus Stockade Blues.
That's it. Columbus Stockade Blues. Yeah.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
then we started out, the first track we played was Brown's Ferry Blues. So, and we're just going to keep playing some music. But yeah, tell me else, because you are, and I did read this when I was doing some homework on you, you also love poetry.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've basically really fallen in love with Emily Dickinson's poems.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I used to write poetry when I was a tortured teen, my tortured memory banks or whatever. But yeah, no, I was invited some years ago. Someone was doing podcasts from her bedroom, and they, bringing creativity back into her bedroom, and I guess getting authors, poets, singers, whatever, dancers, who knows. And for some reason, this person found out about me and asked if I would come up and do something, for the podcast in the exact bedroom where she wrote all of her poems.
Wow.
And so I went up, and my wife, who had a Fiat at the time, drove me up there, and I decided on the way up that I should take one of her poems and write music for it. And so I did, squeezing the banjo neck inside the car somehow while in a Fiat, which is the easiest thing to do, I might add. And went up there and sang this song that it was one of her poems that I put music to.
And which one?
It's called "Frequently the Woods Are Pink," which I actually got to record with Jill Sobule, who's this incredible woman, and we were very friendly. And she passed tragically.
Horrible passing.
Just a terrible thing. So at some point this will come out, but she sang it so beautifully.
Oh, I'm glad that will come out. Yeah. No, what
Yeah, and then I recorded one with Abby Washburn, and a couple of other folks, and then recently I was asked to compose a 5-minute chamber piece by this gentleman who books the Gardner Museum in Boston, and this guy was composing with Leonard Bernstein, like a heavy-duty classical guy.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted banjo lessons, and I gave him a couple, and then he said, "I want to commission you to write a piece." So I did, and I've never done anything like this before.
Wow, how
kind
interesting!
The centerpiece of it is this Emily Dickinson poem about being a musician, basically, that she wrote probably in the 1870s or something. And I wrote around that, and it's so soprano, oboe, clarinet, violin, viola, and cello, and banjo.
Is it released?
No, nothing. It'll be performed probably sometime next year. He's getting all I sent him all the music that I've come up with, and he has someone who had done this for Leonard Bernstein. I mean, this guy's really connected.
Wow.
To have it all really correct and really easily readable by people that do this, full time.
Right.
So I'm really excited about that aspect. So at some point I'll record an album with all of this, some of the things I've already recorded, and I will record this as well. And,
that sounds amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Wow, how great! What a beautiful thing to be able to commission some chamber music. Wow, impressive.
Yeah. So and I don't know what I'm doing. I never took composition courses, but I have to say I'm really happy with the way it turned out.
Oh, that's wonderful. Did it take a while? I would assume something like that takes.
It took a long time. It took months.
Yeah.
Just because I'm touring and I've got my online school, and then in my spare time I was doing this. But it was such a joy and exciting to. There's a program called Sibelius where you can input the music and then you can hear it back. Mm-hmm. And if you don't like a certain note, you can just move it up with a
change
mouse
it.
and change it, and then you can hear what that sounds like. So anyway, it worked out. So I'm really thrilled about.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, I hope that once you release that, I'd love to welcome you back on the show and talk about that some more. That sounds really exciting, and look forward to looking at that. And Tony, people can sign up. You have a mailing list. I always say it's the best way to stay connected with an artist that you like. TonyTrischka.com. And you've got tours coming up and all kinds of wonderful things. And Earl Jam 2 is out, ready for everyone's ear consumption. And you got great things going on. And Tony, you don't sit still, and I love that. So I thank you again for your time here. We're going to play Maple on the Hill, which features Sister Sadie right now.
Thanks, Rita.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony. Be well and safe travels.
Okay, take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
91.3 WVKR. So, yeah, let's play this track by Tony Trischka, Maple on the Hill, here on 91.3.
So goodbye, my little darling. It is time for us to part. I must leave you and the maple on the hill. Stood a maple on the hill. There I sat with my Geneva long ago, when the stars were shining brightly. We would hear the whippoorwill. Then we vowed to love each other evermore. Don't forget me, little darling, when they've laid me down to rest. Just one little wish, darling, that I pray, as I linger alone in sadness, thinking, darling, of the past. Let your teardrops kiss the flowers on my grave. We would sing love songs together when the birds had gone to rest. We would listen to the murmur of the hail.